شهد سعر صرف الدولار أمام الجنيه المصري استقرارا نسبيا أواخر الأسبوع الجاري، ويبلغ سعر الدولار حاليا 48.25 جنيه للشراء و 48 جنيه و15 قرش للشراء و48 جنيه وربع الجنيه للبيع بحسب أسعار الصرف المتاحة لدى بنكي الأهلي ومصر الحكوميين. ويأتي هذا الاستقرار عقب التراجع الكبير الذي سجله سعر صرف الدولار في السوق المصرية يوم الثلاثاء حين هبط إلى ما دون 48 جنيه للمرة الأولى منذ أكثر من عام كامل. وفي وقت سابق تحدثت عبر زوم من لندن مع سيرجي فولوبوويف المختص في استراتيجيات العملات في الأسواق الناشئة من بلومبرج انتليجنس، فسألته أولا عن العوامل التي تدعم استقرار وقوة الجنيه.
Zaina, thank you very much for your invitation and for your questions. Egypt is a hot topic for investors at the moment, especially the local currency and the local interest rates. We all know that it's not the first attempt by Egyptian authorities to advance currency reforms and to adjust imbalances, particularly fiscal and external imbalances. And investors need to be confident that this particular effort continues to be solid. It's underpinned by both policy and sort of private sector response to these policies, and so far we're good. The Egyptian currency is the strongest in our region this quarter. It's up nearly 3% against the dollar, 3.5% against the euro, which is stronger than the South African rand, for example, despite the fact that we have the renewed strength in gold price, which is very important for South Africa. I would say that if we look closer at the reasons behind the strength of the Egyptian currency, of course, it's a huge gain in competitiveness following last March, large-scale devaluation of the exchange rate. But equally importantly, the authorities, particularly the central bank, have done a lot to make sure that inflation has responded positively to all the reform steps that have been undertaken since then. And we just had an extremely low print, surprisingly low print, just 12% for August. That's a far cry from levels twice as high that we had at the peak of in inflation sort of reaction to sort of previous imbalances. So for as long as the authorities are doing the right thing and keeping to their commitments to International Monetary Fund, to portfolio and direct investors, then we can expect that the exchange rate will continue to be strong and very likely appreciating further in the near term in response to very high real interest rates. And of course, what investors usually refer to as carry, which is the real return adjusted for the cost of borrowing.
وقبل استكمال هذه المقابلة مشاهدينا، ورد على الوكالات للتو عن نتائج اجتماع للرئيس المصري عبد الفتاح السيسي مع الدكتور مصطفى مدبولي ومع محافظ البنك المركزي حسن عبد الله. أهم التصريحات التي جاءت هنا هي تأكيد محافظ البنك المركزي المصري بأن الموارد المحلية من العملة الأجنبية تسجل مستوى قياسي خلال أغسطس وتكفي لتغطية كافة الالتزامات المحلية ولتحقيق فائض فعلي. الرئيس المصري يبدو من جهته أكد على أهمية التركيز على زيادة مستويات الاحتياطي من النقد الأجنبي وتلبية الاحتياجات التمويلية اللازمة، كما أكد على ضرورة الاستمرار في العمل بنظام سعر صرف مرن، وأكد على أهمية العمل على خفض الدين الخارجي. عموما في سياق حديثي عبر زوم مع سيرجي فولوبوويف سألته عن توقعاته لمسار السياسة النقدية في مصر وتأثرها بمسار الفوائد ومستويات التضخم عالميا.
Sure. The central bank is not immune naturally in what they're doing. It has to follow domestic developments very closely, but also what's happening in the outside world, in the global trade developments, and the cost of borrowing in major currencies, in particular the dollar, and sort of globally what the outlook is for commodity prices, in particular oil price. So far, Egypt and Egypt's monetary policy are in a good place. Inflation has been coming down quite rapidly. It's down to 12%. The real rates are still very high. And importantly, the Federal Reserve of the United States is very likely to start cutting rates later this month. That's at least what's priced in by the market. Accordingly, the Central Bank of Egypt can afford to be bold, to be proactive. They've just delivered 200 basis points cut in policy rates, which took the market by surprise. At least most investors expected a smaller rate cut. But clearly, the main focus for now is on inflation in the near term. The Egyptian government has made a strong commitment to the international lenders to carry on with phasing out subsidies, including energy subsidies, and another round of retail energy price hikes is on the cards. It's very likely to take place over the next several weeks, so definitely before the end of the year. If the reaction of consumer prices in Egypt and economic agents is strong, is adverse, so we have a spike in domestic inflation in Egypt, then maybe there will be pressure on the exchange rate again. There will be pressure on the central bank to be more cautious. But looking at the recent history of similar hikes in April of this year, it's quite likely that the reaction will be muted. In this case, central bank will have every reason to carry on with the rate cuts, and it's quite feasible that we might see another 300 basis points of rate cuts in the fourth quarter. So a bit of a slowdown in the pace, on average 100 basis points per meeting, but still very significant easing.
وسألت سيرجي فولوبوويف عن أثر المخاطر الجيوسياسية على التدفقات الخارجية واستقرار الجنيه وعن كيفية احتساب هذا النوع من المخاطر في نماذج تسعير العملة.
Yeah, let's put it this way. Egypt is in a tricky postcode. It's next to Israel, which still has a major military conflict going on in Gaza, and also has expanded its attacks recently, including even in the Gulf. I mean, as we know, there was a dramatic development earlier this week. On the other hand, Egypt relies on Suez Canal transit and fees, and those have been severely disrupted for more than a year now. Fortunately, Egypt had a significant increase in tourist receipts and in particular remittances. Remittances largely reacted to the much more transparent and stable situation with the local currency. And it's likely that the remittances strength is likely to persist. So the increase in remittances and the strong tourist receipts have largely offset the losses from the Suez Canal transit. What Egypt cannot control is the oil price, and it's still a net oil importer. And of course, if we have a spike in geopolitical tensions, particularly in the Gulf, where a large part of global oil reserves is located, then we might see an unpleasant development, a spike in oil prices, which may last. In which case, the improvement in the current account that we've seen over the past couple of years will be smaller, and that may have an impact on the exchange rate.
وأخيرا سألت الخبير في بلومبرج انتليجنس عن كيفية موازنة حملة المحافظ المصرية من المستثمرين الأجانب بين العائد وحساسية العملة وعن الإشارات التي يترقبونها لتحديد بقائهم في السوق من عدمه.
Well, I would say the progress of Egypt's negotiations with the lenders, especially with the International Monetary Fund, is important. If the program is on track, then investors will stomach a further reduction in the carry, a further reduction in real interest rates. And of course, if Egyptian growth is steady, if the monetary and fiscal policy conduct is transparent, then there's no reason for investors to start getting concerned. Naturally, Egypt will be competing with other emerging markets currencies in terms of attractiveness of its market. So if, say, the external environment deteriorates, the sort of currency outlook becomes less sort of rosy or less certain, and interest rates come down in the meantime, then I would say the strength of inflows may come down, but it's unlikely to come to a halt. I think Egypt will remain a significant part of investors' portfolios. It's just the peak of the interest that we are seeing over the past several months might be behind us.